Episode 1. A Rookie's First Call. The neon glow of the Las Vegas Strip was a blur through the rain-slicked windows of the squad car. Detective Trent Razor, a 30-year-old rookie, sat silently in the passenger seat, eyes fixed on the city's flashing lights. The faint hum of the radio was the only sound, a stark contrast to the chaos he'd expected when he first joined the force. Instead of high-speed chases and gunfights, his first months had been filled with paperwork, mundane investigations, and mostly desk duty. He'd been a detective for just over 3 weeks, but it felt like a lifetime. He'd been trained in everything from interrogation to forensics, but the weight of responsibility was a different kind of challenge. It wasn't until tonight that he realized how different the job could be. Trent, Officer Harris, his partner for the night shift, broke the silence. "You ever seen a case that didn't feel right?" Razor glanced over, sensing a deeper question behind the casual tone. "What do you mean?" Harris hesitated. "I mean something that sticks with you, haunts you." Trent didn't respond right away. He hadn't seen much to warrant that kind of thought, but he could feel it in the air tonight. Something was coming, something that would change him. The call came in just as they pulled into the precinct. "Unit 47, we have a priority one. Report of a body found in an abandoned warehouse off Fremont Street. No witnesses, no clear motive. Looks like a gang hit, but there's something off about it. You're needed ASAP." Razor's heart rate spiked. This was it, the kind of case every rookie dreamt about. He felt the rush of adrenaline, the sharp bite of fear mixed with excitement. "Let's go," he said, his voice steady, but his mind racing. The warehouse was isolated, its walls marked with graffiti and years of neglect. The only sign of life was the squad car parked outside, the headlights cutting through the darkness like a beacon. Harris led the way, his flashlight piercing the shadows. Inside, the air was thick with the stench of mildew and rust. Broken windows let in a dull, gray light, and the sound of dripping water echoed in the vast emptiness. But it was the scene at the center of the room that made Trent's stomach turn. The body was lying in a pool of blood, but it wasn't the blood that struck him first, it was the way the man was positioned. His limbs splayed unnaturally, twisted into grotesque angles, as though he had been carefully placed there. But the most disturbing thing wasn't the body, it was the eyes. They were wide open, staring straight at Trent with an intensity that seemed too real. He stepped closer, the stench of death overwhelming him. The victim was in his early 30s, dressed in a tattered jacket, his face pale and frozen in a mask of terror. It didn't add up. This wasn't a typical gang hit. There were no signs of a struggle, no obvious weapon, just death. Razor crouched beside the body, his hands trembling slightly as he touched the cold skin. "What the hell happened here?" he muttered under his breath. Harris was already talking to the other officers, but Razor couldn't tear his eyes away from the corpse. The more he looked, the more he felt the wrongness of the situation settle in. "Hey rookie," Harris called from the far side of the room, breaking the trance. "Over here. You need to see this." Trent stood up, his mind still spinning. Harris was standing next to an old, weathered crate. There was something scrawled on the side in dark, jagged letters. "Get out," it read. Razor's pulse quickened. It wasn't just the words that unsettled him. It was the way they were written, like someone had carved them with desperation. This wasn't a simple crime. It wasn't a random killing. "This isn't a gang hit, Harris," Razor said, his voice low. "We're dealing with something else. Something personal." Harris shot him a curious glance. "You really think so? It's just a message." "That's not the message," Razor replied, his tone firm now. "This body, the way it's laid out, the eyes, it's telling me something. This was done to make us look. Whoever did this, they wanted us to find it." As Harris raised an eyebrow, a cold breeze swept through the warehouse. Razor's instincts flared, the feeling that something far darker was lurking beneath the surface creeping up his spine. This wasn't just his first real case. This was a warning. His hands clenched into fists. "We're not leaving until we figure out who did this." Harris nodded, but Trent could tell he wasn't so sure. This wasn't a typical investigation. It was something else entirely. Something brutal, something hidden in the darkness of this city, and Razor was about to walk straight into it.